You are now watching It's Rease Live. Yeah, yeah.
007 James Bond, the where we're suit and a tie.
Who recommended this video right here? Truly evil human experiments that actually happen.
Evil human experiments.
Somebody did an experiment where they just stabbed a man strapped to a table. I guess you would need research of what would happen if you repeatedly stabbed in one spot.
Alright fellas, let's start things off a little easy. Back in the 4th century BC, Greek civilization was reaching new heights. People were getting more and more curious about the world around us and began asking really important questions. What does that do? How does that work? Should I leave the oven on? How do magnets work? Will she call me back? Is this real life? Or is this just fantasy? Does any of this thrive for world? While many focus on the mechanics of the universe, others chose to focus on the inner workings of humans themselves.
Yes.
And not only from a philosophical standpoint. Sometimes you just want to know what makes us tick.
Okay, now you're being freaky.
Towards the city of Alexandria, Egypt, with its big, throbbing library chock full of scrolls just begging to be read. Time to go to Egypt, he said. And so he did. Doot, doot, doot. After getting himself established and taking on a student, a young physician named Erasistratus, they got to work. Together, the two men would begin to carve out a new branch of science.
What is
anatomy.
That? Oh,
but in order to do so, you need some bodies to cut open to start slopping their guts around. And what better way to obtain fresh bodies than to use condemned criminals, captured and supplied by the Alexandrian rulers. Little Hero and Era were like kids in a candy store with a hopeful glimmer in their eyes.
I guess we could do this now, technically. People on death row. You could kill them and just start working on their body. Nobody would blink an eye.
Excited to begin their wondrous experiments. But surely the criminals put under the knife were already past their expiration date, right? Nope. Instead, Hero and Era performed live human dissections called vivisections to broaden their understanding of the human body. They even went as far as to perform these surgeries in full view of the public for anyone who thought it would be cool and interesting. Wow, that's both.
Now we just record it. So I can't say that this wrong for doing this either. Now we put it on camera. So either way, you got to teach this shit to other people so more people know about it. Makes sense.
Both cool and interesting. That's what I'm saying. Herophilus documented their findings in extreme detail, making breakthrough discoveries of the human anatomy. In doing so, he inflicted unimaginable suffering to his subjects. Since anesthetics weren't really a thing back then, the victims felt every cut and slice, at least until they passed out from the pain or died of blood loss. Dissecting intestines, reproductive organs, eyes, or even purposefully damaging the motor nerves to inflict paralysis. It was basically a big game of, what does this button do? In the end, Hero and Era's findings over 40 years of vivisections were revolutionary for the medical world.
It needed to happen. You hear them? They revolutionary. Now we can help each other out after sacrificing those people. Life is strange.
Especially since human dissection would be outlawed shortly after their work was completed. It wouldn't be until 1800 years later that performing human dissections would be a medically acceptable practice again. But like, you know, on dead people? Their work was stored in the renowned library, but like, you know, on dead people?
I don't like his tone and how he looking at us, like all judgmental, like, yeah, we should have just been practicing this on dead people. Now, how the f you know humans gonna react to it if they're not live while you're doing it? Somebody had to figure it out, and it was them. Don't look down on them that it's morally wrong, but we gotta learn. How we gonna learn shit if we don't do dumb shit? Come on, chat, figure it out.
Their work was stored in the renowned Library of Alexandria, but they were lost in the Great Fire a few hundred years later.
So that shit was useless. Life is strange. Who the fuck burnt down the library?
Project 4.1 was actually a side project proposed immediately after the deployment of Castle Bravo, a high-yield thermonuclear bomb that was dropped in 1954 by the United States. Bravo was part of Operation Castle, a series of other high-yield nuclear tests with the goal of establishing superiority over the Soviet Union.
Is this what Oppenheimer movie was about?
The Marshall Islands, a remote Pacific group of islands, served as ground zero for the detonation of the nuclear weapons. Castle Bravo was the strongest detonation and surprisingly produced 2.5 times the expected explosive yield, resulting in an explosive force equivalent to 15 megatons of TNT. Woo! To put that into perspective, that is 1,000 times the explosive force of the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima, Japan.
Whoa! I still don't get how did people let America even drop a bomb on Japan. I still don't even understand that. And they didn't even retaliate. They said, you know what? We're going to let this slide for the rest of our civilization's life. The world is insane.
Japan in the final days of World War II. Like, goddamn. To make matters worse, the Marshall Islands were occupied with citizens. So US officials were kind of like, sir, shouldn't we get those people out of the...
Bless you.
Thanks, sir. Allergies have been bothering me all day. Must be the radiation, right? No, but seriously, are we gonna get those people out of the radiation zone?
Yeah, you know, that was on my to-do list. Well, too late now, so let's just see how things turn out.
Operation Castle was quickly amended with the addition of Project 4.1. This new section aimed to study the human response to significant radiation exposure. You know, as if tens of thousands of victims in Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't evidence enough. Commander of the US Naval Medical Corps, Eugene Cronkite, was in charge of the project and swore everyone involved to absolute secrecy because he thought the public wouldn't be too keen on the whole test nuclear radiation on non-consenting people thing. Overall, 239 Marshallese residents were exposed to significant levels of radiation and began showing signs of radiation poisoning a few days later.
If there was ever superheroes or superhumans, it would have been because of radiation, I'm telling you.
Symptoms included loss of hair and significant skin damage with weeping wounds, although the wounds did heal rather quickly. Immediate observations ceased after 75 days with the conclusion that no long-term effects were likely. But just out of curiosity, regular checkups were performed on the residents for years after. Women saw increases in miscarriages and stillbirths, and newborns that survived experienced developmental difficulties, impaired growth, and a disproportionate development of thyroid cancer. In addition, about 1/3 of those exposed had developed significant tumors by 1974, 20 years after Operation Castle commenced.
They fucked the streets
In the following years, Marshallese representatives spoke out against the United States, with accusations that the scope of the experiment was premeditated and intentional, to which the US officials responded, "Nuh-uh." During the early years of the Soviet Union, it wouldn't be uncommon for political opponents to quickly fall ill with a strong case of the death at the hands of poison. In fact, it was quite an effective and discreet way to silence any and all opposition without causing too much of a stir. Well, besides the public reacting to mysterious deaths.
And that is why we must rise up against...
Oh, look at that. They got another one. So how were the Soviets so good at developing successful poisons? Well, you've got to run preliminary trials on living subjects, of course. So in 1921, a year before the Soviet Union officially formed...
This is just a war recap video. They tricked me. Evil human experiments that actually happened. I guess this war-related stuff falls under that category. Reese, when you gonna play Fallout? I actually don't like Fallout. I never played it. It just don't seem like my category of game.
The Kamera was established. This was the Soviet Secret Service's poison laboratory. Here, new deadly poisons were developed and tested on human subjects. Those tested were prisoners from the gulags, various labor
The gulag strikes again.
camps built around the country for anyone who even had a fleeting thought that wasn't approved by the Soviet Union.
Carry on.
The ultimate goal of the Kamera was to devise a poison that was not only lethal, but undetectable. It would be colorless, tasteless, odorless, and untraceable in
Then how the fuck you know you making it?
an autopsy. Prisoners would be unknowingly administered various test poisons, which were disguised as medication. For me, if it isn't an orange Flintstone vitamin, I don't trust it. The various poisons tested included ricin, which causes severe internal distress and suffering, cyanide, which can cause violent seizures and heart attacks, and curare, a potent muscle relaxant that makes you painfully choke to death. In the end, the tests
Mixed all in one?
were pretty successful for the Soviet Union, not for the prisoners. Research led to innovative ways to discreetly dispatch a target, from deploying a cyanide mist to making an assassination look like a heart attack. But the blue ribbon winner was the concoction known as...
Why are you showing us how to make it? Why the fuck are you putting the ingredients on the screen right now? And then labeling it best, worst poison, like we need to know this shit. Did he just give us the recipe to how to cook it up ourselves? Hydrogen 2 nitrogen mixed with a little oxygen alienated from the upper area. Branch it to the nitrogen double positive nucleocapsid. Like, what the fuck?
C2, carbolamine choline chloride, which was basically liquid depression. Exposure to this sucker sparked a very curious reaction. Instead of a violent telltale "I've been poisoned" type death, the victim would simply become weak with a rapid decline in health, all while maintaining a calm and silent demeanor. Death occurred within 15 minutes. Since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russian officials have claimed that the Kamera has been disestablished and abandoned. Yeah, sure.
Humans are sick syphilis. I'm not watching that part of the study. I'm not watching that part of the study. That has something to do with doing the nasty and passing it around. And you ain't tricking me, buddy. Y'all ain't putting me in that situation. I'm not watching that. Chat, y'all could study
My
that
sister
on your
Brianna.
own. You could study that on your own. Reese don't want no parts of it. Reese, not me. I don't want no parts of it. That's the American part. Shut up.